This is Mindcraft. This is us. For the truth comes from within before it goes without.
It's clear to me. No, my last name's Kilham. My middle name is Grace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I was thinking like Emma Kilham is a little like aggressive for an artist name, so I went with Emma Grace.
I know.
Yeah. I experience a lot of emotion, and music really helps me through it, and it helps me understand myself better in a lot of ways. Creating songs and playing through some chords, it takes energy, right? And when you get really comfortable with that energy, it just builds up and adds to your emotions and adds to your mood, and it usually lifts me up. Creating art and music, very positive experience for me most of the time. There are some ups and downs, right? And I find it very enjoyable and emotionally rewarding. I often feel very proud of my creations, which really builds my self-confidence and helps my self-esteem, which have been low points for me in my life. I've really struggled with self-confidence and self-esteem, so having creations that I've done that build me with positive energy have been really helpful for just the feeling of myself and how I relate to myself. Creating music and art is also very relaxing for me because I have a focus, and it's easier not to be distracted by my own thoughts. When I'm creating, I feel the same kind of bombardment of thoughts that I usually do just on a day-to-day basis, but when I'm channeling them into something creative, all my thoughts kind of like go together and they like push me to do something positive. I really have a great time performing and sharing my music with the public and with my friends and my family. It brings a really good positive feeling, it adds confidence for myself, and it's really supportive, but there's also just like a little negative retreat back into myself for like about an hour after I share, just because it's a very heavy material and I just really feel the stigma of my illness. I can really feel that a lot of the time, even when there's no like outward expression of stigma, I still feel it. Every time I perform, every time I talk about it, I can still feel it there. So my album starts with My Bipolar Brain.
That song, I noticed, it made me feel the ups and downs.
Yeah.
There was definitely
Thank
something,
you.
Yeah, like, it was like you just, because you experienced it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like I felt what you're going through.
Wow, great.
It was really, it was hard to listen to.
Yeah. My next album is going to be more background music type thing.
Yeah.
This has been a great experience, but it really takes energy to listen to this album and a lot of attention. Yeah. So yeah, it's just My Bipolar Brain is just kind of like the anger and the agitation and just all this energy around just being manic and then depressed and then manic and then depressed and just not finding the median, right? Mm-hmm. And then it leads into Roller Coaster, which talks about more of the ups and downs and the ride, and a lot about mania, a lot about depression. And then it goes into Too High, which is a huge reflection of my manic episode, which I had at the end of grade 10 on a class trip to Tofino.
Oh, no.
Yeah, my whole class was there, and it was quite a rough experience. I don't really remember a lot of it. I was fully psychotic the entire time. I was very manic leading up to that trip. I hadn't slept for 2 weeks building up to that trip, so it was very traumatic. And so Too High kind of like touches on, it talks about a little bit of the hallucinations and the delusions I was having, and it shows like the speed of your mind from the inside versus the outside. So like when I was manic, I felt like my mind was moving like perfectly oiled gears, like it was just going perfectly. I was seeing so many hallucinations and like everything was moving really quickly, but to me it felt normal speed. It was like the verses of this song. And then you move into the chorus and it just shows the experience from the outside. It says like, I'm sick of falling ill with an emotional fever. And it's just kind of the perception of being manic. And it's the understanding that you are sick, right? And then I wanted to write a song about medication too. So that's what I wrote Salt as. I called it Salt because I take lithium, which is a salt. And so that's my mood stabilizer. And I just kind of wanted to write about like how difficult it is to be on medication, right? Like you got to take it at the right time every day. And sometimes you got to take it more than once a day, and you got to have it on you all the time. And it's just something that you really have to pay attention with. You really have to plan in advance when you're taking a medication. You can't just do spur of the moment things. And so I wrote Salt about medication. And then Inescapable Curse is just the awful feeling that I'm never going to feel what it's like to be normal. Because I am so abnormal, right? Being bipolar is not a natural thing. So Inescapable Curse really touches on the deep emotional feeling of just never being that normal person that you were told to become when you were a kid, and accepting that there is so much pain that I'm going to experience in my life because of this disorder. But then in the bridge, it kind of gets to this understanding and this essence of, well, you know, like, I mean, I wouldn't be this person right now. I wouldn't be sitting next to you right now if I didn't have bipolar disorder. I wouldn't have had any of the experiences that I've had in my life. I would be so different, and I would have never been able to help people in the way that I'm helping, or even understand myself in this way. And so I've just kind of come to the understanding that, like, I am me with mental illness. Without mental illness, that's not me. And I don't want to try and push that away, because I know I'm never going to fully love myself unless I love all of myself. And so Inescapable Curse is really about just accepting the disorder and living with it with pride, and understanding that, you know, it's hard, and it's a lot harder for us than a lot of other people, but like, we're worthy of this journey. We can do it, you know? And a lot of the time, you know, it just feels like, wow, there's so much pain in my future, why would I want to go down that road? But it's like, no, we can do this, and it's an important journey to take, and there's so much to gain from it, and there's so much to learn, and there's so much love to be felt because of it. Even though it's awful sometimes, it's worth it, because the experiences we have are everything. What are we without our experiences, right? And so 6 on the album is Below the Median, which is probably my darkest song. It talks a lot about suicide and how it's something that your brain wants you to do, and it's nagging you to do it, and it's telling you that it's the right direction and you need to do it. And Below the Median is just so heavy for me because I feel that a lot, and this song just really embodies that feeling of hopelessness for me. And it was so important for me to like get that emotion out into this music, to be able to listen to it and to process it and to find my way back to the happiness of it. And it's just, I'm just so glad I wrote this song. It's probably one of my favorite songs, just because it has so much meaning to me, because I've experienced so much of that, and it's just a way to express it and have people hear it and be like, wow, you know, I can hear the pain in that, and I can really empathize with that, and I can build an image of what it must be like for people who struggle like this, you know. And it's my main reason for writing that song was to break stigma.
Yeah, there you go.
Break stigma, get the experience out there so we don't have to really talk about it. Maybe we can just share that song with someone, you know? So maybe it's not as painful a process to connect about that. So that was really important to me, to get out there and to just have just depression on a pedestal, because so many people just push it away, hide it, they don't let anyone see the symptoms, and it's just so awful. And just like the outcomes of that is just so horrible, you know?
Yeah.
And then, and okay, so like, yeah, so the beginning of my album, I was mentally doing okay. So My Bipolar Brain, Roller Coaster, Too High, those all came out about the same time. It was just my beginning momentum of the album that I really got those songs together, and Salt too. And then Inescapable Curse and Below the Median, Get Up, and Magnolia Tree really came from the struggles that I was having when I wrote that song. And Get Up, when I wrote Get Up, I was so depressed, but when I wrote this song, I fucking got up off the floor and I went to the hospital. And writing this song just made it so much easier for me to just understand my emotions and see where I was at. Because when I struggle, I try to convince myself I'm not struggling. Like, no, you deal with this all the time, it's not affecting you. You know? But then I really wrote that song and I could really hear that I was ready to get up off the floor and to just take care of myself. And so I did that. And it was hard. It was really hard. But then when I made it into Magnolia House, I started getting better. I started feeling a little less depressed. And then I wrote Magnolia Tree, which is my final song on my album, which talks about my recovery. Recovering from Below the Medium, from Inescapable Curse, from all that pain of just feeling just so low and so forgotten and just lost. Just finishing that album, making the cycle, seeing my mood cycle in an album just kind of move that way. It's just, it helps because I can see that I can get there again, you know? No matter how fucking low I get, no matter how far I sink back into Below the Median, I'll always push to get up and recover. And that has been just amazing for my recovery, to just have that just fact there. Like, I made this album and I did it and I completed it and I went through recovery while I did it, and it's there, and it reminds me that I can do it again. And I just really hope that people can be inspired and want to go through the cycle of my album with me and get up and recover and just really transform and find themselves again and love themselves again, because that was a big part of my journey, to gain confidence and to appreciate the parts of myself that trigger me and love myself again. And through writing this album, I really got there. And it was a journey, and I would do it again.
Yeah?
Yeah. This is the 5th song on my album, Inescapable Curse. because I was inspired by someone I was working with at the cafe. She became one of my close friends. Should I say close friend?
Acquaintance?
Yeah. Well, we're like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess close friend. Okay, yeah. So I came to the idea of writing an album because a coworker of mine at the cafe had just finished her own, and I was so inspired by it. I thought it was just so amazing, and we worked together on my album in the start. She was the one who really introduced me to recording and getting your songs into the computer and all that stuff. She was so helpful there. So I decided to write an album, right? And so then I just decided I was gonna write it about my mental health experience, and the title just came to me. It was like, My Bipolar Brain. That's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be about my bipolar brain. And I started getting all excited. I was doing all these different art projects for my album cover, and I just started by writing down like 8 songs, just titles, and based on each title reflected a certain aspect of bipolar disorder. I ended up cutting 2 of the original songs and replacing them with Get Up and Magnolia House, because I just didn't resonate with them as much. And so once I kind of came up with the title, I got the vision for the song and the feeling and the emotion and the theme, and then I just came up with some chords, and the lyrics just started flowing. They just came out of me. Just exactly what I wanted, just wrote it onto the page. I didn't even do drafts really for my songs. They've been just built up inside me, working on themselves through all my stress and anger and uncomfortableness and pain. And once I just started writing, it just started to form and started to grow. So I've experienced stigma in my life, and I really wanted to write a piece that could resonate with both people who have mental illness and people who don't experience mental illness. I really wanted my album to be a tool for people to bring understanding to people who didn't understand. I really wanted it to be fully transparent, my experience, my raw emotion, so that it could be shown to someone and they'd be able to hear it and be like, fuck, wow, that's really the bipolar experience. Like, I'm blown away. That's what I really wanted to deliver. And so that part of it was to educate people just on the disorder, on the symptoms, on the process, on the life I live. And the other part of it was to inspire people who struggle with this mental illness to get the courage to recover over and over again, and just get that hope and that feeling that someone hears you, someone understands you, someone knows what you're going through, and they're rooting for you, and they want you to succeed, and they want you to heal yourself and recover. And I really wanted that message to get out, that you're not alone, that there's so many people out there that experience this, and we're a community that will support each other, and we're here for each other. It took a lot of vulnerability and courage for me to get to a point in my life where I became transparent with myself. It took years. I was lying to myself for years. I was telling myself, reassuring myself about certain things, like pushing down my triggers, not connecting things to my trauma. And then suddenly it hit me like, fuck, I react to people in certain ways because of my trauma, not because of what they said, not because anything that they're portraying or saying to me. I feel anger because it connects back to trauma in my life. And I decided I don't want to be angry anymore. I don't want to feel anger towards people. So I was like, you know what? I gotta accept that I have triggers. I've gotta connect them to my trauma, and I've gotta work through that pain. So next time I'm triggered, I can be like, okay. So I feel that trigger within me. And this person is not trying to make me feel this way. So what I gotta do is feel that pain and say, hey, you know, I'm really feeling this pain right now. Can I just get a hug? Because there's that touched something inside of me that is really painful, and I know your words are genuine and kind, but I just need something more, something to just to connect, you know, like triggers and trauma brought up by triggers, that all just blocks connection. And the biggest thing that I want to do in my life, with my life, is to connect to people. And I can't do that if I have barriers. So I've decided I'm going to work on those barriers, work on those triggers, and move to a point where I don't react on my triggers anymore. I can feel them and I can sense that they're there, but my reaction doesn't have anything to do with the trauma. You know what I mean? That was a big epiphany for me, that my anger was connected to trauma. I always just pushed it on the other person, like they're just trying to make me feel like shit, you know? But it's like, actually, I'm making myself feel like shit. So deciding to write an album was so important for my recovery, because it set a goal. It set something for me to work for. It set something that would bring me accomplishment. Every time I finished a song, it was this energy that was building me up and helping me. I used my stress, my pain, and my struggle throughout the whole process to add even more to what I was creating. And that took it off my heart and put it into my music, which was relaxing and calming and helpful and helped my recovery, and a great experience. Each song reflects on a part of my journey, and after each creation, I felt I had the strength to release some of that pain away from my heart and into my music.